I know we're in for when you have that Cheshire cat.
Christopher Galloway, Lake County Auditor. I happened to actually just catch this last portion of the meeting as I finished up a mediation call with our attorneys on the East Lake Power Plant, and I see that there's some discussion on the LGF formula. What I would caution everyone on as we move forward with this process, and this is, I'm addressing the president as have to, but it's not really directed at him, it's really directed at everybody, including the public, is to sort of pump the brakes in terms of wild speculation on who may get what, the interpretation of memos, etc. We will have a budget hearing meeting on Monday, our Budget Commission meeting on Monday. As you know, I've invited all representatives of all, or encouraged all the local entities to send a representative and be in attendance. And I say pump the brakes because it's my intention to ask the prosecutor's office to forward the memo to the Attorney General for an additional review, and I will do so on Monday. Again, we have one attorney's opinion, and perhaps that's a team, but in essence, it's Prosecutor Coulson's opinion. I do know that in discussing this and calls I've received from other local jurisdictions, they don't necessarily agree with that opinion on what transpired in 2012 and the actions that were taken at the time of the committee that was convened and met. And so I think we're going to get into some legal interpretation on what happened, intent, where are we now, and then what's the path forward. So my goal and again, I say also pump the brakes on what everybody's going to get. You're hearing numbers thrown around. For me, this becomes sort of reckless speculation. I can tell you right now that the state statutory formula is not based on population. My early look at that formula is that other than potentially the county, there's nobody that's going to get a windfall if we went to the state statutory formula. There are communities that would get a little less, there are communities that would get a little more, but by and large, my initial look, and my office has been already working on this because we know we're going to be asked, that most communities really aren't going to change much. And at least it appears that way as of right now. Some communities, townships, might actually see cuts versus what we have now, based on need. And need becomes a legal budgetary definition, not a, hey, I want something. So I just want to kind of encourage everyone that's watching this, or is like, we're going to go through a very orderly process. At least that's my goal as chairman of the Budget Commission. Obviously, I wasn't here in 2012, but I am here now. So my process is going to be as orderly as possible. It starts with this meeting on Monday, inviting all the entities to have a conversation. I think we're going to have additional legal review, hopefully, on the matter to see where we are. And then we will start to formulate a sort of step-by-step orderly process moving forward. So I just kind of wanted to weigh in on this because I got a little alarm sitting in my office when suddenly there were millions of dollars here and illegal that, or we have one attorney opinion. And we all know if we put 5 attorneys in a room, we're going to get 7 opinions. So let's just go ahead and see what the Attorney General says. Let's see what other law directors and legal counsels on our local entities think of the memo. I know Mr. Hackman him and his team have done a lot of great research. But I know that Prosecutor Coulson would be the first to say that that's their office's opinion and is not law, is not a decision by a judge. So, I think it's just important for we all kind of keep that in perspective. So I just wanted to kind of weigh in on that, because so folks sitting at home are like, whoa, what's going on? The reality may be that that the formula we've used for the last decade, since 2012, may be perfectly appropriate. So that's a point of contention, and I think we'll work our way through that in an orderly fashion. And hopefully all the entities within the county, come to the table with the same spirit of, okay, let's be orderly in how we go about this. So, thank you. You guys have any questions of me before I skedaddle?
Mr. President.
If I may, the only thing I would add is it is in ongoing conversation with Prosecutor Coulson. I believe he has, if not already done so, he will be forwarding that to the Attorney General. So that will be taking place. I do need to emphasize that we are talking about, this is not contract law, so intent does not apply.
That's true.
So I will look to legal, though, because you can say it far better than I. Or did I just say it fine?
You said it just fine, Commissioner. This is not based on contract principles.
Thank you. So again, we have to be very careful in interpreting, which is where having collegial, strong relationships, working with our mayors and managers, working with the Township Association, this is where the elected officials need to come together, because this kind of government financing and funding, this is not like balancing a checkbook. This is truly the sausage making, if ever there was. And I do not envy you having to navigate these waters, because if you look at the statutory formula, dear God, the Manhattan Project.
Simpler, yeah.
It's just,
I will say, just so everybody understands, there are 88 counties in Ohio, and only one uses the state statutory formula. And there is a reason for that, because it is such a nightmare. And it is so complicated and convoluted. We've already begun the process of putting it together, trying to assemble it. And again, I'll get into more of that on Monday, but I just wanted to kind of come up and go, I didn't want over the weekend, there'd be a lot of speculation out there on this, that, the other, because we're on
2 jails for this?
We're all on basically step 0 at this point. So we have an opinion from the prosecutor, and let's see what, how we can go about this in an orderly fashion before we make any, determination. So, but we'll get into that more obviously on Monday as part of the Budget Commission. So,
Mr. Gregowicz, I believe you had something you want to add?
Yes, I think it's important to add too that State of Ohio has asked all counties to look at their formula, right, coming May 1st.
Yeah, so they, in the last budget, there was a item put in the budget regarding the Budget Commission, asking that within a year of the passage of the law that we have a public hearing, the Budget Commission hold a public hearing to discuss the alternative formula adopted by the county for the LGF. And so we would have a meeting, obviously, by law. This meeting will not be that meeting, because that law budget is actually not in effect yet, in terms of the law change. But it would be my goal to have that, sometime early in 2024. I would point out that, however, the legislature put in that requirement for us to hold that meeting, but then also added no other direction as to what you must do with that meeting. So in essence, they just required 88 complaint sessions, I guess, across the state, but with no direction of thou shalt do or anything else along that lines. So kind of an odd. It's like doing it halfway, right? Like they got everybody at the table and then said, yeah, okay, you can meet, and then what? They didn't say we had to re-adopt anything or do anything. So, but yes, you are correct, and there is a increased interest after this budget process, I can tell you, out of the legislature on the local government fund, local taxation. As you probably are aware, they've sent up a joint committee, the House and the Senate, to work on the property tax, the local property tax question, the concern that some legislators have on the ever-growing increase in local property taxes. I'm at least very pleased right now that they seem to be very open to hearing things from groups like the auditors and the commissioners on what's going on at the local level. So we'll see if this committee ends up being anything, or like many joint committees in legislative history. It's where ideas go to die, and then we never hear about it again. It's my intention, and I know my association, the County Auditors Association, is we are fully engaged. We've already had our own meetings on what we are going to recommend to the legislature as it relates to reforms. And one of the things that we will be asking the legislature to look at will be reform of the Budget Commission. So.
And while we have you, I think it's also proper to mention that the local government fund is part of the revenue sharing. The revenues that are being shared are decreasing. I think there was a 5% decrease.
So even though the legislature increased the percentage going to the local government fund, after the tax cuts, we're actually going to see, it's estimated about a 5% reduction in the LGF. So there is, we'll call it increased competition for diminishing resources. So yes, that's also sort of, and obviously that's an estimate. If actual collections are higher, we could see more like we did this year. If they're lower, we obviously could see less. So right now it's estimated to be a 5% reduction for the Lake County and all the entities in the county.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Sir.
I just want to say thanks to the auditor and his staff for helping to clarify this issue. I know that every mayor, trustee, and council person is going to want to see preliminary numbers and continue to have updates from us on where this is in the process. It is a zero-sum game, unfortunately. As you said, there's a diminishing amount of money and increased competition for it, and we want to make sure that everyone has a full understanding of what is happening without being blindsided or surprised. Right. So I'm really grateful that you came to clarify.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
And on that theme, I'll just throw this out there. The theme of what did we know and when did we know it? As soon as the information became available, we got it out there. So before anybody thinks something was sat on for 6 months or more, there was a great deal of research. And as soon as that research came to a conclusion, that conclusion was shared immediately.